All right, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we're brought to you here at the Philadelphia Fusion House with Brent as well as Sideshow, analysts from the Overwatch League. I'm Topical, and we're going to talk about how we all got here today. And so we're going to start it off. You guys as analysts for the Overwatch League, how did you end up in that situation?
I ask myself that question every day, mate. I wake up, I go to work, and I'm like, someday they're going to figure it out. They're going to be like,
Yeah. We were actually saying earlier, when we were saying that we were looking to dry ourselves off out of the pool, we're like, the mansion's blocking the bloody sun.
Mansion blocking the sun.
Like, that's the worst first world problem I've ever heard of.
It's a really hard life out
It really is a hard
It's
life.
tough, yeah.
But we both got started in Team Fortress 2, so a game that a lot of players came from into Overwatch, because you played 6v6, same as Overwatch. It was like a class-based shooter, I think they call it. Yeah. So it's like some of the concepts translated across. It's not a very similar game, but it's kind of similar. So we were, I started as a player, you started as a nobody. So
I was also a player, just not very good. So it's like never at the top level, but yeah.
You have to play it at some level to really, as a caster and as an analyst, you have to play it continually to keep your minds fresh and to keep everything flowing so you can, to pick to the crowd what's actually happening. Like, you guys play Overwatch now, how do you guys rank on that game?
How do you rank on that game, mate?
Oh, well, I've been dropping recently. I'm not going to lie.
because that's like a humble brag, right? If you say I've been dropping recently, and then you say, I'm like mid-diamond, that makes everyone think, but really?
Really?
Like,
so,
that's
realistically,
he's
so you want me to tell you? No, Season 1, ranked 72, before they switched over to the new ranking system. Other than that, mid-masters level. That's what I've been playing at. And then in recent memory, recent memory, the last year, it's been dropped down to diamond. So
he's a diamond player through and through.
So I mean, between both of you, who would win? If you won.
Oh, we've had a 1v1 recently. We've had a 1v1 recently. Me versus Sideshow. You go on Sideshow's stream, twitch.tv/Sideshow. We had a 1v1 on McCree.
I like the plug.
Farah, but Farah, he cheated. That's why he won. Widowmaker. I won 20-6 in Widowmaker duels. I won 20-5 in McCree duels.
Let's go back to the 1v1 Farah.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go back to that.
In an 1v1 Farah, did you knock him off the ledge and he couldn't? He just ran out.
No, I just kept destroying him, and I looked around like, you know Farah, right? So if you hit 2 rockets, it's basically you've won.
Yeah.
So in the process of the duel, if you hit a rocket on another guy and then they kill you, you're on like half health. You've got only like 80 health left. So he didn't realize there's health packs around. So I, being the intelligent player I am, go around and source the health kits. He doesn't, and he calls that cheating. That's
I'm at
not
a huge
cheating.
disadvantage. Like, again, massive cheating. Like, it's, and I don't actually consider that part of the 1v1 challenge.
No, but what you need to know is I'm a higher rank.
Right.
But also I don't play the game very often. So like, back to your back to the assumption that you have to play the game to be able to understand it. I don't think you do if you watch a lot of the game as well. But you have to really watch it and really study it. That's where I do most of like the prep work and stuff.
Okay.
But you want to know the real reason why he's a higher rank, don't you? You know, that week when he was living in that treehouse over there, him and Sado, you know, they were proper close, weren't they? Like, you know, he was running that little boosting corporation. He's like, yeah, come on, Sado, sort me out. I need to win this argument.
That's not true at all.
Pay him off, yeah.
No, he's super cheap. No, so I watch a lot of games, right? So like, I think that you can get by if you really study the game a lot, you can get by doing that. But a lot of the top analysts and whatever, at least in the future in Overwatch, are going to be top players because they have all that knowledge just from playing.
That's actually a conversation we were having here with the Philly Fusion. This is the inaugural season with it all, a lot of what Overwatch is going to be building for the next couple of years are some of these veteran players. You're going to see players that stick around. They may or may not stick into one org or not. I mean, like in the Counter-Strike world, you had the old Virtus Pro.
Yeah.
Same team for years. And you had these guys that were just hammering an anvil all day long. And then you get the veterans in it, and that's where we were talking about the expertise that you're going to end up building over the next couple of years. Is it the same world in the analyst desk that you guys end up learning and you follow through on all of these teams and players and you could track them from there on out? Like, how do you guys see yourselves as analysts in the next couple of years?
The thing with Overwatch is it's a super young game, so we don't have that at all yet. It definitely will happen. The other thing that will happen is that at the beginning of games like CSGO, some of the pros try to transition from like 1.6 or Source or whatever, and if they can't get in, then an easy pathway to transition that player knowledge is to go into like an analyst desk role or something like that, because you have that knowledge to be able to do it. Like, you have to be able to articulate yourself, and you have like other skills that you need to be able to work on. But definitely, I think we'll see that in the future. Like, Jake is the guy that comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's doing all right at the moment, but as soon as he drops off, I reckon he'll be straight on the
desk. Yeah, he's the perfect fit for it.
But we'll have to keep him. We'll have to stop him from talking, because the guy, every time the player cam is on him, you can't hear what he's saying because he's trying to communicate to his team, but his mouth is just going like 100 words a second. It's unbelievable. So yeah. Players like that will definitely.
It'll be interesting to bring them on, even alongside you, because
So one thing that as well that I've been considering recently is that compared to other games where you bring in pro players from onto the desk and they fit in quite nicely, in other esports titles the desk segments are much longer than in ours in Overwatch League. So I think that's one skill that the pro players are going to have to learn, is going to be able to, how do you really concise the most important point you want to make on the desk?
Using concise as a verb there.
Exactly. Yeah, and again we come to back to the question of how did I get my job, and we won't go into it.
Yeah. We call those Brenisms.
Brenisms is what they're known as. Yeah.
It's a similar worlds in the aspect with Counter-Strike and Overwatch, but also completely different. With Overwatch, you guys have, like in the game itself, there's like respawn and everything else with that. And Counter-Strike, you're dead.
Yeah.
You know. How do you guys keep track of all the action that's going on? Because Counter-Strike's more of it's a slower game.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
For sure.
How do you guys keep track of all the action? Players that are respawning. Respawning is different. Hero, like what? Like it's a lot of work to do.
It's a lot of, so in my opinion, it's just watching a lot of VODs and trying to. So what I did, and I think you did the same, was going through old VODs super slowly, step by step, to find out why they lost fights or why they won fights, and exactly why they won it. What was the key difference makers.
Yeah.
And then you do that enough times and eventually you start to learn. You're better at it than me because you watch an absolute hecton of games. A lot of VODs, like much more than I ever did and still do. But it's like, that is how I learned, was going through it slowly.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And trying to essentially telestrate it, which is like with the markers and whatever. So there's a couple of old YouTube videos.
There's a lot of, there is a lot of action happening, but if you think about the game and like really understand it, it comes down to a number of key points. So the fights happen really fast, but there are a few key things to focus on in each fight. So they change up all the time. Like in one fight you might be looking at how the Lucio uses his ult, or like in another fight you might be thinking, all right, the Winston needs to like engage super hard here, let's focus on him. So you can't tell everything that happens in every fight, but you can get a good overall idea of what's going on. I think in some sense it's like a disadvantage of the game, but it keeps it really exciting. It's fun to watch, and it's not just that every round is different, or every fight is literally different. So you might have like 20, 25 fights in a match,
right?
Compared to, and they're all condensed into like a 15-minute game, whereas in games like the MOBAs, you get those, you get the same amount of team fights, but they're like way stretched out
over like an hour.
Yeah, so
sometimes, yeah.
It makes it, in some sense, it like increases the. If you increase the amount of time something happens, you can use it to look at trends. So you don't so much look at you don't look at one individual fight and say what was the problem here. You look at like them all as a whole and say what was going wrong in the entire series.
So another comparison, like what you were about to get at, is with Counter-Strike, when at the upper echelon with professional divisions, it really comes down to the teams who made the most mistakes. When you're at the perfection levels that they play at, it's whoever makes the first, maybe the second mistake, the round is gone at that point. In Overwatch, are there redeeming factors, so you can have somebody that comes in and covers for a teammate that made a mistake, or is the game developed to that point where it's that punishing if you make a small misstep?
A cool statistic is that 80% of the fights, if you lose a player first, you lose.
Really?
Yeah, so that is really high, right? It's like 4 out of 5 times if you lose the first player, the entire fight is gone. Like just at the very beginning. You can basically just give up on it. Just don't invest anything into it. Don't use any ultimates. Obviously in CS it's slightly different because some things carry over, like the economy carries over, right, in CS, so you wouldn't want to, like, you can save rather than actually going in and investing. So I guess in that sense it would be like, you try and save your ultimates in the same way that you would try and save a weapon or something. But you can just go in and die rather than in CS where you try and run out and stay alive. But the situation is kind of less punishing in Overwatch, even with that statistic, because there are a lot of heroes that can peel for other heroes. Like it takes a lot to kill somebody in Overwatch compared to CS. Like, you find a guy in CS, he's dead in like, what, half a second?
Instantly,
maybe less?
Could be instant.
Yeah, in Overwatch, you have a lot of, like, you can shield players, you can remove damage that's coming towards them, you can resurrect them. So there are possibilities of fixing mistakes that occur, but teams have got very good at being able to punish the fixes, so it ends up being somewhat similar, I would say. There's less clutch potential as well, so even if you're in a 1v3 in Overwatch, there's no chance of winning. Literally no chance.
Unless you're Pine.
No, he doesn't win 1v3s, mate.
Yeah, sometimes.
He takes out 3 players, but that's in like a 6v6.
Yeah,
I don't think
the
I've
only
ever
other
seen
time
him, like,
you see those clutch scenarios is when already it's set in their favors regardless. Like
most of the time, yeah.
You play
or there's
high,
like a slight disadvantage and they make it an advantage for themselves because they clutch. But you never see like a 1v.
You never really see it.
You never see an ace in Overwatch. It just doesn't happen. Whereas in CS, if you're absolutely nuts and the enemy team makes mistakes, you can pull that off.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can 1v5 it. It's a possibility to do so. Do you think in the future, with balancing patches and everything else, do you think there will ever be an instance where there will be a, we'll call it the grand slam, of a player that manages to 1v3 or 1v4 on a specific site, capture the point? You think it'll happen?
So I think there's still potential for clutch moments. Like that still happens, but not in the same way as it's like, oh, they've just team wiped them. It's like, for example, a Tracer player getting a clutch, like double kill of a pulse bomb or something to turn the tide of the fight.
That's true.
Or even like a Widowmaker player just getting a crucial pick. Like they might lose a player straight away, but sometimes it's not too bad. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
The Pulse Bomb one is pretty good.
Pulse Bomb is a good example.
That comes down to the heart of Overwatch as well, is for any one player to make a shining moment, to make a clutch, it really relies on another teammate to make that
they have to be set up.
You get a Zarya that pulls in, and then you get a Pulse Bomb in, or a Pharah that does the ultimate in. I mean, you can do all that work, but it relies on someone setting.
It's very much team orientated compared to a lot of other titles.
It is, yeah. I think there's also a lot of strategy that gets overlooked when. I was actually thinking about this recently, just wasting time away, thinking about CS, the old game that we played, TF2, and Overwatch, and thinking about the different ways that strategies are implemented, because there used to be a bit of beef between the TF2 and the CS scene, because we were a Valve game, but we were like the redheaded stepchild compared to CS, whereas CS was like the redheaded stepchild compared to Dota. So we were like the runt of the litter.
The runt of the litter, yeah, that's what we were.
Yeah, and so people would get really defensive. They'd be like, TF2 is like super strategic. Yeah, it's like, it isn't really. Like in TF2, there were a limited number of decisions you could make based on the situation. If you knew the game, you knew what the right move to make would be in that situation. It was less to do with your style, more to do with this is the optimal way to play the game. And that took incredible skill to be able to pull that off and make the right decisions, but it wasn't so much like a decision tree where you could make a lot of different choices. And CS, I love like smoke executes on sites, or like the ability to take things in vastly new ways, or the way that people support each other, and like the skill of the entry frag and whatever. But in Overwatch, there are so many like abilities that work with other people, and like different links between all the different heroes.
Different variables.
It's crazy. It's like a web that spans across the team. Like you pluck on a single string of the web and it all rustles. Like every player has to play their part.
The way I look at it is like a DNA sequence. If you change any one player or aspect or different character into that, you get a whole different animal into it, you know?
So people don't appreciate the strategy even just by changing one hero. Like a Genji to a soldier in a normal composition where you have like Winston, D.Va, and
changes the way you play completely.
Changes utterly. And people just look at it and they're like, these are the same, they're basically the same comps, but they don't play at all the same. And people, I think when they're watching, don't know the game enough to be able to tell, like, it's really diverse with its strategy.
So what should somebody that's looking to begin to watch Overwatch, what's the biggest thing they can grasp while watching this fast action on the screen?
You're looking at me, mate. Like, it's so hard because I feel like our audience is very much casual. So this is an argument I've been making. How would I teach it to a new player?
Yeah.
How would you even begin? Because there's so many different complexities. Like the only reason I feel like I've grasped Overwatch as well as I have is because I have such a deep background in other FPS games and other like hero-based shooters like TF2. So I already understand things like economy, respawn waves, these really in-depth things because I've just played hours and hours of other games. Like I have no idea realistically where you would begin to learn it as a new player.
The target audience is people who play Overwatch as well, right?
Yes.
So you would be teaching it to somebody who plays Overwatch. So to a guy that played Overwatch casually at like a gold level, that's where the SR is, you know, it's like a bell curve. So most of the people are in gold. So to a gold player who's watching the Overwatch League, explaining why people use the compositions that they use would be the first place that I would begin. So like at the moment, a lot of Winston D.Va gets used just because they're super mobile, and you need the supports there. Zen gets a lot of damage out and is also able to heal. Like you play with a Mercy to keep people alive. Like these things, and then being able to look at the ultimate economy is the easiest way of seeing it. So it's like one team initiates and dives in, and it's like, how well do you deal with the people attacking you?
Well, the next thing I'm going to do when I'm watching the next games is to take those exact notes, and I'm going to have to start playing a little bit more serious now as well, more than a casual player as well. But we're running out of daylight here at the Philadelphia Fusion House, ladies and gents. We're going to have to close it off, and I appreciate your guys' time for the interview today.
No problem.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, you guys can follow them on Twitter. We'll have those links down below. And again, you guys follow Nerd Street as well. Have a good night.